Hello and welcome back. This is Jesse Nelson. Welcome to our family devotional here on this Monday afternoon. I want to tell you about a story. Have you ever felt so confident about something and then you had a last minute hesitation? Well, me, Rick McCurdy, and some of my brothers were out playing. This is back in Jamestown, New York. We were playing tennis on a tennis court, and I just was sure that I could jump over that tennis net. So I'm running, and that last minute jump, that quick second hesitation, you kind of forget all your courage leaves you, and I don't jump as high. Well, I probably can't jump that high anyway. I didn't jump over the net. That last minute hesitation, all this fear kind of came over me. I hit the top of the net, came down on my elbow, and I shattered and cracked my elbow open. And it was probably, I wouldn't say one of the worst pains I've ever been through, but it was extremely painful, and I had to go get x-rays on it, and it had shattered almost all the way through, and we just kind of let it heal. But that happens in life, moments in life where you're confident and courageous. Maybe your friends dared you to go do something, stupid or crazy, and while they're telling you and you're far from the event, you may seem to have a lot of courage, and then all of a sudden maybe it's to jump off a cliff into a lake or into a river or go to a haunted house or go do something, and all of a sudden that moment of realization hits is, I'm really about to do this. And, so sometimes we don't understand that, and that happens in our spiritual life. There are moments of ups and downs, and where we're courageous, and sometimes when we're not so courageous. And I want to tell you about a story about David, because this, to me, is just one of the most, not really comical, but it's very ironic statements in Psalm 56. And one of the reasons why it's so ironic is the title of the psalm. Not the title of the psalm, but the note. It says, it's a psalm of David, or a miktam of David, when the Philistines seized him in Gath. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to read the psalm, and then I want to go and read what happens while David's in Gath, okay? And I just hope you see some of the irony and some of the comedy, I think, that is here. But also it goes to show that David was a real person. The same David that defeated Goliath, right? And I have this background here. The same David that had no fear when it came to Goliath, right? Goliath is out there standing, and he's, blaspheming the God of Israel. And David says, who is this blasphemer? He goes out with a stone, right? And he takes 5 stones with him, but he hits him with 1 stone, kills him, defeats him. All this great faith. And now he's in Gath, which is the city of Goliath, right? It's the home of Goliath. And are we going to see that same David? David is on the run from Saul, who Saul is trying to kill him, because it has been pronounced that David is going to be the next king. But I want to read Psalm 56. It's not an exegesis on Psalm 56. It's not an exegesis on 1 Samuel 21, where the story is. It is just, we'll make some application at the end. So, remember, this is him being seized in Gath. So I want to read the psalm first, and then I want you to see how this story plays out. I don't know if the psalm was made before or after. I hope after, but you'll see. Be gracious to me, O God, for man has trampled upon me. Fighting all day long, he oppresses me. My foes have trampled upon me all day long, for they are many who fight proudly against me. When I am afraid, I will put my trust in you. In God, whose word I praise, in God I have put my trust, I shall not be afraid. What can mere man do to me? All day long they distort my works. All their thoughts are against me for evil. They attack, they lurk, they watch my steps, as they have waited to take my life. Because of wickedness, cast them forth. In anger, put down the peoples, O God. You have taken account of my wanderings, put my tears in your bottle. Are they not in your book? Then my enemies will turn back in the day when I call. This I know, that God is for me. In God, whose word I praise, in the Lord, whose word I praise, in God I have put my trust. I shall not be afraid. What can man do to me? Your vows are binding upon me, O God. I will render thanks offerings to you, for you have delivered my soul from death, indeed my feet from stumbling, so that I may walk before God in the light of the living. So what you see in this psalm is a man who recognizes that there are enemies around him, they attack him all day long, and that God, I will put my trust, okay? And now there are some people who dispute that this was not written by David. This was not written by David during this time. But it seems to be a very Davidic psalm, something that he would have written. And you see David does have a lot of up and down moments in his life, but I want to go read the story in which this psalm is attributed to when David wrote this, okay? And I hope you see the irony that I see as well. So then David arose, this is 1 Samuel 21 verse 10, David arose and fled that day from Saul and went to Achish, king of Gath, which is the Philistines, okay? But the servants of Achish said to this, Is this not David, the king of the land? Did they not sing of this one as they danced, saying, Saul has slain his thousands and David his 10,000s? Right? And this is the David that they sang that song after he kills Goliath and after he wins many battles. And don't think the Philistines have forgotten that. And now all of a sudden, David, who killed their champion, is now in their hands, right? Is in their land. And he's on the run from Saul. He doesn't have his army with him yet. He doesn't have his little band of 400 warriors that he's going to put together actually in the next chapter. He's on his own. And we see that Psalm 56 was supposed to be written during this time. And, it's about this trust in God. I will walk with God. God is watching over me. All my tears are in his bottle. They're written in his book. God knows all the things about me. And now look at how this story plays out. And I just hope you see the irony in the comedy that I see as well. David took these words to heart and greatly feared King Achish, king of Gath. So he disguised his sanity before them and acted insanely in their hands and scribbled on the doors of the gate and let his saliva run down into his beard. So you get this picture of David hears them coming for him, and he starts acting like an insane person, starts basically babbling out of his mouth, drool hanging down, and starts scribbling on a wall. And Achish said to his servants, Behold, you see the man behaving as a madman. Why do you bring him to me? And, and the story goes, David obviously is protected by God, but David's psalm of faith and his prayer of faith and his song of faith doesn't seem to translate right here, at least, into his own very life. If he were to trust God, it's almost like him trying to help God out, like Abraham with Sarah, right? Abraham told Sarah to tell the king of Egypt that you are my sister, to try to protect him and her. Well, it turns out pretty poorly, but here, his faith seems to waver. All right, because fear kicks in, and that happens in our life. Fear kicks in. And so what happened to the David who had no fear against Goliath, to the David who's now fearing the king that he already slayed, this king's champion, many chapters earlier in his life? What has happened, And I'm not here to speculate. I'm not here to, once again, to give a commentary there and a commentary there, but I hope this gives some application. What I want to do is give some application, is that there are moments in our life where we will be afraid. There are moments in our life where fear will kick in, and yet God can still rescue us even through our fear because of other moments in our life, right? Don't think for a moment that God abandons you the moment your faith wavers. Or don't think for a moment that God just kind of gives up on you because you're human and there are moments in your life where you have weakness. Weakness is actually where God comes in and displays great strength, right? Weakness is a moment where God can come in and show, what, I'm going to be with you and I'm going to protect you. I made a promise to you even while you are weak. And so David learns from this, and in the next few chapters, he goes back and he escapes into the caves, right? And he runs from Saul, but he still wins many battles, and he goes back and he defeats all the Philistines later. He goes back and wins all the battles that God wants him to win that Saul never won. And so there are moments even in the life of David. We only think about Bathsheba, but there are other moments in David's life where he has great fear. And trust and fear can go together, because in those moments of fear, when God still delivers us and still keeps us through, it is where our faith should be strengthened and bolstered, right? Don't think for a moment that God abandons you just because you're weak. God abandons you just because you're fearful. Just never lose your trust that God is good, that God is gracious. He renews his covenants every morning, his loving kindness every morning. and that he wants to save you. He wants to protect you. He wants to keep you. He wants to bless you. And imagine, if our kids, anytime we ever did anything good for them, is only when they were good. What are they going to come out of that? Dad only likes me when I'm good. Dad doesn't like me when I'm bad. Well, I'm frustrated to you when you're bad. I'm frustrated to you when you're not listening. But, this is obviously not a same application here. But I just want you to remember that God is true. And I want to finish that. I want to kind of read the rest of that psalm. Where it says, in God, verse 11, in God I have put my trust, I shall not be afraid. Well, he was. What can man do to me? David still was a person who recognized that. I think there are going to be times in our life where we are people who are not afraid of our enemies, who are not, but in the moment, right? In the moment when the rubber meets the rubber meets the road, there's going to be a moment of fear. There's going to be a moment of where we're scared. You can see the enemy, but you can't see God, and yet God still delivers. And I love that. It says, your vows are binding upon me, O God. I will render thanks offering to you, for you have delivered my soul from death. Indeed, my feet from stumbling, so that I may walk before God in the lights of the living. I like to think maybe this psalm was written after God delivers him, and maybe David has a moment of recognition that even when I was stumbling and falling from fear, you kept my feet from stumbling, you kept me from falling on my face, so that I may walk before God in the light of the living. And God gives us reminders daily of his goodness to us, his loving kindness towards us, and his grace to us. Don't ever forget that. And just because you may be living in a time where your faith may be wavering, or there is fear in your life, or there's worry and stress and anxiety, give it over to God. Let him keep you. Let him watch him work in your life. If you would just give your trust to him, if you just learn to trust and lean on him, he loves you. And I hope this encourages you. I hope maybe there were some funny moments in this. I find that whole story to be funny. Hopefully you're not walking around like an insane man to get out of something in your, maybe work, right? Because you might get fired. But anyway, hope you guys have a great day. I love you. God bless. And hopefully we'll see you guys next time.